Hi.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Danielle Kremp and I work at Southern Nevada RPDP. I'm here to moderate this session. If you need anything, just put your question in the chat and I will definitely answer it as our presenter is presenting. The session title you are in is Every Student is an Active Learner. We're TPTs, and our presenter is Anna Sisiak. Did I say it right? Hopefully. She will introduce herself and say CSAC. I knew it. I had it right the first time. Okay. She will present and share her screen and introduce herself. And here you go, Anna. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I'm up here in Reno, and the snowstorm has affected my Wi-Fi, so I just wanted to smile and wave to you first. But to keep the lag time from being too irritating for all of you, welcome, welcome. I am going to stop my video. It seems to be running better that way. So hi and bye for the video, but thank you for coming. Hopefully that solves that. So I'm going to go share screen here and I put the link in the chat for the presentation, and all of the links are in that presentation. And here we go to share, keeping the volume. All righty, fantastic. So, can someone give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can still hear me? Fabulous, thank you. Okay, so let's go to present our slideshow. Thank you, thank you. So I'm monitoring chat, but my view of cameras is off on my small little screen here this morning. So yes, communicate, jump in on the mic if you have questions. And I'll be monitoring chat at the same time. Thank you. So welcome to TPTs, not as in teachers pay teachers, but as in total participation techniques. Again, my name is Anna Cisak. I teach up here in Reno at Washoe County School District at North Valleys High School. There is my email there for you. And boy, we got a big crowd today. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. I hope you find it very practical and useful today. Please, again, don't hesitate to email me if you ever have any follow-up questions about what I've gone over today. I'm glad you're here. All righty, so first thing I want to start out with was TPTs and the NEPF. Up here in Washoe County, we do, based on the NEPF, we do our evaluation system, but I know in Clark County, where I taught for 15 years before I came up here to Reno, you really follow the NEPF pretty well. What's amazing about the TPTs, the total participation techniques, is, and I picked the most bang for their buck. The book is from Presida and William Himmele, and they are teaching techniques that are those high frequency and research-based techniques that allow for all students, which we know all is always bolded in that NEPF teaching framework, all students to demonstrate at the same time active participation and cognitive engagement in the topic being studied. These can be used for anything, not just computer science, but this is how I want to share how I use them with computer science once I've moved in. This is my second year teaching computer science. I taught Spanish and ELL for the previous 6 years. And I've used TPTs for about 5 years now, and I find that they are fabulous in my computer science classroom. They are unplugged type of activities, right? We don't need the computer for them, but they reinforce all those concepts. I picked the 5 that I want to talk to you about today that are the most bang for my buck in the computer science classroom. And you can see they address all of the standards in some way when we're talking about those high leverage teaching standards. So you do any one of these 5, and there it is for your evaluation. You have the evidence you need And your students really are processing at all of those levels in all those areas and standards in some way. So I'm a big proponent of TPTs. We have 5 of them we're going over today. The first 2, quick write, read and respond. Also a quick draw, read and respond. Those 2 are very similar, so I kind of pushed them together there. I'm going to talk to you also about a whiteboard splash, the 3 threes in a row, and sorting. So here's what we're going to go into. Let's start with the quick write, read, and respond. Now, I know many of us have done quick writes for years. They've been around for so long. And I found, and I've taught middle school and high school, my elementary school teachers in here, welcome, welcome. I can help you, especially during the Q&A session at the end I've saved for. I can help you kind of, bring them down to your even early elementary level. These can be in K2, not a problem. But there's some adjustment and some questions I'll be happy to answer if you ask them. But the quick write, read, respond, I've developed out of just doing quick writes and then into a think, pair, share that I did for years, those Kagan structures. And I found, no, my kids socialize way too much. They do not think, pair, share. They start talking about all the different drama that's happening. I know we all have that same experience. So I turned it into a read, respond activity. And so I kind of adapted the TPT idea with quick writes. And I think it's been a game changer for my daily lesson planning. So how does it work? First, you're going to select a prompt you'd like students to address. Could be anything. And of course, the rigor of the prompt is going to impact the rigor of what your students do. You're going to give them a specified amount of time to collect their thoughts and jot down a response, 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the prompt. You're going to instruct students to trade papers with a classmate. Then you give them 1 to 3 minutes to read the classmate's quick write and respond to them in writing. And I'm going to tell you, for your ELL and your special education students, remember all students are doing this at the same time. You're just walking around monitoring, not even checking their work at this point. It gives each individual a chance to process their thoughts, see someone else's thoughts, and really start acquiring the knowledge from whatever you're teaching that day. And I'm going to tell you, I do quick write, read, responds, and then the next one, quick draw, view, responds. I do them every lesson, every day. So that's how often I do them. Because I will stop, 15 minutes in, a chunk of information, let's process it through a quick write, read, respond, or a quick draw, view, respond. How you ensure higher, and then you follow up, right? They respond, follow up with a pair share or a whiteboard splash if you'd like to then be able to read and talk. For your ELL students and your special education students, having something to read in a pair share empowers them in a way that I had not experienced until I started using these consistently. So I always do a quick write, read, respond before I'll ever do a pair share, and then, or I'll go into the whiteboard splash, which I'll talk to you about there. Here, if you have downloaded that presentation or made a copy of presentation, this is an example of what I do. So it's my bell work is today's quick writes. So they just jot down on a half sheet of paper. I do no more than 3 in a block schedule class period. I usually do 1 or 2 depending on the topic we're studying, how much algorithms and programming we're doing, etc. But I just do it as a bell work. And then here's another example of a prompt 1 or a prompt 2 that you'll have access to. And then here's my rubric. And I am a huge fan of single point rubrics, especially if it's a formative assessment like this is. So that's this type of assessment. It's going to be formative. So there's their proficiency criteria. So it's all performance-based in my classroom, which I love computer science because it is a performance-based type of content area. And here's their proficiency. this is what you performed. This is, and it's an either or. And if you're not familiar with the single point rubric, it's a cult of pedagogy. And I will type that in the chat box for you. Cult. Whoa. Get your hands on the home keys. Sorry. Cult of pedagogy. That is where I got the single point rubric years ago, the idea, and it's explained really well for you to follow up on if you're interested in the single point rubrics. Yep, there we go. Going back. Thank you. Whoops, no, it went off my share. You're right. Thank you. Appreciate that. So it is not sharing. Let's go back and screen share. Microsoft Edge, TPTs, share. Okay, so now I hope got my share correct and I deselected, so you should be able to hear me and see my screen. All right, so the rubric was on the link on how it works. Let's go to share this tab instead. Here we go. And apologize, I did not click over my sharing. Thank you. Been a while since I've been on Zoom. So here's the example, as I was saying, about the quick writes. Like, what is computer science? Here's another couple examples for prompt 1, prompt 2 for their bell work. And now we do not do these as bell work. They just copy down the prompts ahead of time. Then I start teaching the content, and then we stop and do a quick write, read, respond, or a quick draw, view, respond. And then the rubric, there it is. So there's their response, there's their rubric. So writing needs to be legible. When I collect them, I need to be able to read it. When I talk to them, yes, I do have a built-in question and answers. I work 9 through 12. And yes, I collect it for a formative graded assignment. We do mastery learning. So really their summative assessments are mostly what their grades are based on. Yes, I definitely have the presentation. Let me, let's go back to my window. Here we go. Yes, I will put the link in there, Matt, not a problem. And so we grade based on, oh yes, works great using Google Docs. So this is great for both virtual and face-to-face stuff. And you can, modify it. They can all go into a shared Google Doc, etc. All that through Google Classroom. I've had it work great when I taught in CCSD with Google Classroom. So here's my proficiency criteria. It's just quick and easy formative assessment. This is just for me a check, for understanding. So, that ages me, but that's what we used to call them all. Just for this formative assessment isn't a lot of their grade, but I have found they do it to process it just because I'm collecting it. So I really like the accountability that way, because again, of course, we have students that are just going to love it and do it because you ask them, and then you have the majority of students that are looking for accountability. Yes, thank you, Julie, for reposting my link. Appreciate that. All righty, I'm going to go back here. Let's go share this tab instead. So how you ensure higher order thinking is you're asking, that's the prompt, the level of prompt you ask. You ask them to make connections between the concepts and their effect on the world around them. Use open-ended questions a lot. I also found closed-ended questions where there is kind of a right or wrong answer with the reading and responding. it works. So for like, let's say I'm in an algorithms and programming question, and I'll ask them like, hey, you know, what are the purposes of comments when you're coding? And boy, oh boy, do I get, and I just did that one last week actually, because we were talking about comments. We're in, I teach computer science and applications, 5 sections of it currently. And boy, I got some ideas when I was glancing and skimming those that were turned in of, especially from the responses to their peers section, where they were like, well, yeah, because then I'm not going to get confused after I do, because I can keep track of it till about 5 or 6 lines of code. And then I start to get confused. So then it's for me, also for them, my partner, when I pair program, for them to follow up, they know what I meant to do for debugging, etc. So yeah, there is some closed-ended that you can do that still really gets them thinking deeply about the content. And again, yes, this can be adapted to all content areas as well. Those of you that teach more than one subject area. I also included, I'm going to show you what it looks like here. I'm going to share this tab. I give my students sentence and paragraph frames for starting this. So like, here's the compare and contrast sentence frames. When they're responding, I have them add to others' thoughts. I do all of this because I was an ELL teacher for years, as well as these paragraph frames that are by subject area that I wanted to share with you, not by subject area, excuse me, by purpose of writing. Because this, once the students get going, like by now in the semester, they've done enough quick write, read, responds, or quick draw, view, response, that they know now, okay, I can start planning my writing. But I've still got several newcomers or in my classes that really rely on these paragraph frames once I explain them to my ELL students. And so I want to share those with you as well, because they're powerful for getting the students to think about how they're organizing their thoughts. So yeah, there's another resource right there. It's linked right in that response link right in this slide. Let me double check. Questions here? Thank you. So that's the quick write, read, respond, and the quick draw. View, respond is the same idea. They're just doing drawing of a concept. Now, for computer science, when I taught my other subject areas, the sky was the limit with certain drawings and major concepts. I tend to use the drawing ones for pseudo coding in computer science. The link in the frames is in the presentation. It's right here with this response underlined hyperlink. So I have all the links under how it works for an example. And then in this one, for those sentence frames, it's in the response link posted in this. You're welcome, absolutely. So I didn't do any links on quick draw, view, respond because it's so similar to the quick write. But for pseudo coding, as I was saying, when I will put up an output, let's say if we're doing either JavaScript or Python. Right now we're doing a lot in Game Lab with JavaScript in code.org. And so I'll just put in an output of like the rectangles versus the ellipse, etc. And then I say, okay, how would this look like coding? We've been practicing it now for a couple class periods. And then I have them draw out the pseudocode and then trade it with the partner and have that partner respond in writing. You can also, again, always do this as a pair share. But for me, I think the accountability of responding in writing keeps them on task and on track. So that's my, game changer for those two. And I do these every lesson, as I said. Again, assess by collecting them, skimming them. Just the process of collecting them, I'm gonna tell you, keeps kids accountable. And I can see, yes, all students have done it or not. And that's a conversation I have with the students later, if I need to. I'm checking questions here. All right. So, whiteboard splash. I oftentimes, again, whiteboard splashes. I'm going to explain how it works first. It is, you create a sentence starter or a prompt from a quick write or a quick draw or a question. Also, a thing for ranking. If you ever do ranking in your classes, like rank something in order of importance to you or in your perception, this works great for whiteboard splash. So you would like all students to see all of their peers' responses. As students generate responses, you're going to ask them to copy it onto a random or designated place on the whiteboard. Could be on a Post-it, could be on chart paper, however you want that around your room. For me, it's always on, I'm fortunate enough, I have a large whiteboard in front of my classroom, and the students just come up, they know, hey, randomly put it on if it's an individual response. If it is, I then group it as table responses. Then I have it numbered 1 through 8 because I have 8 table groups in my classroom, and they can do it that way as well. Then we debrief by asking students to walk around, analyze, and jot down similarities, differences, and surprises. I have them get into small groups, share what they noticed in terms of those similarities, differences, surprises before asking volunteers to share. Whiteboard splashes in higher order thinking. Whiteboard splashes are great for addressing the big picture and the relevance of the topic you are teaching. And here's how it looks. I tend to do paper copies. I'm fortunate enough that I can get those done at the copy shop here at the district in Washoe County. This is what it looks like in my room for a half sheet. So here's a half sheet template. If you want to use, feel free to make a copy and use it. So, for example, I do a lot of whiteboard splashes to process vocabulary. So what is the most important? And there's your ranking embedded in it. Vocabulary term from this lesson. Write the term and its definition in your own words below. Now copy your term with the definition on the whiteboard in an open space, any open space. Walk around, and then they note the similarities, differences, surprises. Again, it can be any prompt. I follow up a lot of my quick write prompts with a whiteboard splash and have them write their answers that they wrote from their quick write paper, that half sheet, into this half sheet. And I'll often photocopy, on both sides there to reuse and do extra just to save paper. But that's what a whiteboard splash will look like, and that's how it can be adapted. And let me go back to, let's see, here we go. No question. Okay, just want to check the questions in the chat box. Yes, it's amazing for Jamboard when I was doing virtual. Exactly, thank you. Yeah, it can be adapted again. For my early elementary teachers, these kind of things with a quick write, oftentimes it's going to be like you just do like phrases with 1, 2, K. It's a little more challenging, but whiteboard splashes, if you do pictures and visuals, I have seen elementary school teachers do amazing work with them processing, with having just kind of the whiteboard splash on their whiteboard with the kids putting up like a little, visual. You can also do it as just a really easy yes, no. You don't have to do the similarities, differences, surprises. Categories, you can modify it that way. And it can even, your lower elementary can really benefit from seeing all of their peers' responses and ideas. Fantastic. Okay. 3 threes in a row. This is more of a, activity that I use when I've got a significant amount of vocabulary or a significant amount of concepts. So this is something that's usually a review leading up to a summative assessment when I do the 3 threes in a row. So you prepare 9 questions, items, concepts based on the content and type them into a 3 threes in a row handout, which I'll have the template. I'll show you in a minute. It's linked and shared. Students then walk around the room asking peers to explain one answer, only one, to them. So they look at the box and they're like, hey, can you, or you ask the peer, hey, which one of these 9 can you explain to me? Then the person they've asked summarizes or, states the answer that they know. The student that has their own paper summarizes their peer's response in the box on their own handout. Each student will listen to the answer, write on their own handout only, no trading handouts. It's all in the one person's original author's handwriting. That keeps everybody from just writing down. You're actually talking and conversing about it, right? The scholarly discourse we are looking for. Then students will go find another peer, answer another question, repeat the process. You can ask any particular peer only once for one answer is the rule. Then you can go over answers as a class. You can end up doing some of it as a whiteboard splash. Yes, for science, like it's amazing for everything. I love the 3 threes in a row. So then ask volunteers, share responses, etc. The activity, which is right as good as the questions or the prompts you ask. Not all questions need to require the higher order thinking, though. You mix it up. Some complex, some are going to be just those, DOK level 1, depth of knowledge level 1 kind of questions, but it's all bringing it together. And that's why it's more of a prepare type of activity for a summative assessment. How am I doing on time? Okay, thank you. So here's what it looks like. So here's the Unit 1 review that I did with my student. So there's kind of the structure. First time you do it, of course, takes longer. But the 3 threes, there you go. I've got the 9 that I selected. And you'll see I mixed it up. Some was, very straightforward, like the rules for variable names. Input device, output device. But then, what are the essential components to a computer? This one, right, we know there could conceivably one right answer, but students are going to add more depending on their perception. And you get some really interesting, unique responses. Whoops, that way. So lower elementary teachers, I do not recommend 3 threes in a row, do 2 twos in a row review. And then it's only 4 concepts. And then I've noticed, especially first and second grade, they don't get overwhelmed with the amount like your upper elementary, middle, and high school students do. All righty. So that's and again, that's one that I do not use every day for sure. It's towards the end of a unit. So like every 3 to 4 weeks, we're doing a 3 threes in a row. Checking for questions. All righty. Sorting. My last one for most bang for your buck is sorting. And now sorting again can be adapted to any content area, but I wanted to give you an example of how I use it in computer science. I use sorting for, and in the video, the one student that we watched the students in our opening session, where he was like, do the code thing where take out a piece of code and we have to solve it. This is a sorting activity. I love that he said that. I was like, yes, I'm talking about that today. So basically, in your elementary teachers and middle school teachers that are do any ELA or ENELL, it's like sentence sorting, except it's for code. So you're going to type up a sequence of code and cut it into strips for the groups of 3 to 4 students to sort in the correct order according to the expected output. So on a slide in front of the class, I will put output. And then I have those sentence strips in a little envelope. Thank you, Sarah, for letting her know. So I will have them all, in an envelope, and then they pull them out. Now this is a lot more prep type of activity. So again, I'm only doing this every 2, 3 weeks for kind of, and you can do it as several sorting ones in a learning stations movement too. If you really want to, amp up the higher order thinking there. But so they just then sort their strips according to how they think it's going to give the lines of code in the correct order to give that output that they're seeing on the main screen. They also, as a team, need to prepare a rationale for how they sorted it. Why did they make the choices they did? And then I'm usually, when I have them do that, follow up with a whiteboard splash. And then we can see and can talk about as a whole group everybody's answers, which are only 8 of them in my group with 8 table groups. But depending on size of your classes, I usually have about 32 to 35 students in a class. So I'm pretty fortunate that way. the Google Docs, they are linked in, should be linked like for how it works here. If you click on it, and then that should take you to a direct link. See, for example, my example. So yeah, so they're hyperlinked in the presentation. So here's an example of my code sort we did in Python last semester. I haven't done this one yet for finding areas. So then this would be, right? This would be their output that they're visualizing. And then now these are their strips cut into strips that they need to order to get to this output. Okay. Oh yeah, presentation. You're right. Be on the presentation view. Thank you, Latoya. So yes, so that is what it looks like. I'm going to go back here, share this tab. So that's how it works that way. Again, the process of sorting lends itself to analysis of components, and it's inherent. The higher order thinking is inherent when we start sorting that way. So you really do get a very powerful type of learning activity where they're really acquiring it. Again, for true acquisition, I don't know if everybody knows this, language people, you will know this, for ELA, ELL, world language teachers too that have done this. To truly acquire these concepts, it takes about 100 to 150 repetitions of doing it in context. How do we get that much? Like, sounds insane. And how fast we move and progress through a curriculum. Well, if you're using, the terms correctly when you use the terms. So for the kinder, second grade, using Google Docs, these are all unplugged activities that you can photocopy to have them do and, modify how you need. And then you will, according to what you're teaching them, modify the prompts or the activities to what they're doing. So for example, like if you're having them do in Scratch, any sort of, especially for the sort. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Danielle.
That I didn't mean to put in there. That's the evaluation, but please don't fill it out till the end. Keep going. I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay, that's what that is. So for me, it's just a matter of I make the photocopies. I give my students, the scaffolds, the visuals they need to do that. And so for if you take Scratch, and I would just snip tool a couple Scratch lines of code and then have them sort, like 3, if they're, if they're at that level yet, right? And you'll know your students. So sorting may not work for your K through 2 students, but you could do a sort based on a description of what a definition of a term would be, for, let's say, hardware. And then you have 3 components of hardware, and have them sort and rank which ones they think, especially second grade, this is more, but which ones in order of importance or that kind of stuff. Okay, excellent. So that's for the sorting and how it works. I will say, as far as middle school, high school, your upper elementary, this type of stuff, especially with them writing down or preparing to say their rationale, like how did they sort the variable names if they had variables? Why? Like mine was very obvious ABC for the variable names on the one I did, but once we get more advanced, I will, hey, do the variable names order matter? Well, it depends on what you're doing with the code, right? And so that kind of stuff. And once you add those of us that to go further into it with loops and all of that, yeah, the order does matter. And so just having them have those conversations to prepare a rationale with the small groups of 4 or 5, I have found very powerful. Yes. Oh, there you go. Ooh, I like that. Thank you. So those are my 5 biggest bang for your buck. There are a lot more if you're interested in the total participation techniques.
I know, Anna, some people, when you were showing the rubric the first time around, couldn't see that rubric. So I don't know if you want to share that one more time. And then I know you have time for some question and answer. You have about 15 minutes left.
Perfect. Thank you, Danielle. Appreciate it. Yes, I absolutely will go back to sharing my screen. And I will show you that rubric again that I used. I just put up my rubric for the, hang on a second while I pause there. For quick write or quick respond rubric. But I'd be happy to answer questions about single point rubrics and how I create too during our Q&A. Okay, so on quick write, if you're on the quick write read respond slide on the how it works, I'm going to share this tab. Oh, shut it up, and here's some I meant how I set what kind of prompt I do, and here is the whole rubric on how I evaluate when they. Again, I'm doing these. I'm skimming most. I'll tell you. Let's be practical as a teacher. We got so much we do, right? So I'm skimming them and not actually putting them in because they're a formative assessment very often. But my students don't know. Randomly, I will. And so I look at the writing is legible, grammar, usage, spelling correct. If it does not interfere with my ability to understand, I am not counting periods and making sure uppercase versus lowercase. I do encourage that, of course, because I want you to write things correctly. But as long as I can understand what you wrote and your intention behind it, you're getting that point. And so I just do it as a little check, check, check. And they get their full 4 out of 4. I grade everything on a 4-point scale for my high schoolers because they're very familiar with that. The My Thoughts section, I have them answer with an explanation that refers to the part of the lesson that caused them to draw that conclusion. And I really talk about connections to self, to computer science, and the world. I have these connections. I want to see that you are, broadly thinking about not just what's happening exclusively in our class, but where are your connections there? And then the reader's thoughts. This is, everybody's going to have this because they're going to be on someone else's paper. Sums up what the author wrote and gives an idea off of it. And that's where I use the sentence frames and sentence starters for that to give the students that. So really when I do correct these and put them in the grade book as a formative grade, they do take a while to go through because I'm checking, okay, did everybody get a thought on there? Did everybody get a response on there? And that's why I don't grade them that often. I just randomly pick maybe one every 2 weeks to actually in the grade book. But I have found consistently, me walking around and monitoring, they're doing it. And then they're doing it because they're also expected to do a follow-up activity like a pair share, reading it to each other, or doing a whiteboard splash is what I do more often.
Kathy had a question earlier. It said, what grades do you work most with and how do you get buy-in? Anna, Kathy had a question and says, what grades do you work most with and how do you get buy-in? Is it a graded assignment? She teaches biology, but she feels like her kids are not really motivated.
Okay, thank you. So I teach 9th through 12th grade. I have taught 6th through 8th for about 5 years out of my career. I really think, like I said, the buy-in for me is the pretend accountability, right? As far as I'm walking around and monitoring. Did you write something down? Oh, no, right. Remember, this is not an optional activity. Pick up that writing utensil, please, and thank you. And I go on to the next kid, and you've got a classmate right next to you who wants to be able to respond and get the points for that. So because yes, as individual, all students are doing the activity, but they're relying on getting the full points by responding to someone else. If you don't initially write something, your partner cannot respond. And that's also, I think, that peer pressure does work in our favor as teachers that way, if we can set it up that way. I think your elementary are, teachers, you get a little more easy compliance is my impression. My sister's an elementary school teacher and uses a lot of these strategies in her class. And she says she doesn't, the buy-in just seems because the teacher asked me to, and I like my teacher. And I'm like, great. But she teaches fourth grade. So, but for me, yeah, just that expectation of collecting it oftentimes gets those, non-compliant kids that are like, okay, she's collecting it. What other questions? You can pop in on the mic or in the chat box. All right, thank you, everybody. I am so pleased you came. I hope you can use something of this on Monday, because that's my purpose.
The session title I just put in the chat, and I will put the evaluation form in there one more time. I just want to thank you, Anna, for presenting today. If you have questions, Anna will stay on and answer any of those. But your next session starts at 11:25, and I'm going to stop recording here.
Thank you, everybody.